Have you ever wondered what it'd be like to mill your very own lumber and save hundreds of dollars on material costs for your next project? Well, here today on Shopfix, I'm going to show you just how to do that by using an Alaskan chainsaw mill. Let's get right into this. Shopfix. It's for the love of woodworking. Setting up a sawmill to most of us means having land, large equipment, and access to timber and the means to haul such timbers. Land, equipment, and trucks that many of us can't afford or manage at the location we live at. That's where the Alaskan Chainsaw Mill shines. Not only can you manage it on a budget, but it's also extremely portable. The mill attaches to your chainsaw by tightening two sets of metal bars. Once properly mounted, your ordinary chainsaw can be turned into a precision milling machine. The mill can be adjusted to accommodate a range of chainsaw bar lengths up to 36 inches. I'll be using this Neotech chainsaw that is equipped with a 28-inch bar. After refilling the chain oil, I top off the tank with a 51 oil to gas ratio. There are many things that you could use as a flat reference for the initial top cut. However, the most affordable and accessible by far is a set of 2x4s. This is what I'll be using, and prior to screwing them together, I jointed the reference side of the 2x4s so I know it's as flat as can be. I'm joining the 2x4s parallel to one another by using 1x2s. Once those are mounted, it's time to set the log onto the mill. To move such a log by myself, I found flipping it to be the easiest way. If you wanted to bring your Alaskan sawmill to somewhere remote and couldn't bring along a milling platform, that would be completely doable. I chose to build a milling platform so the log would rest higher so I could comfortably mill the logs at a normal standing height. The milling platform also allows me to mount the log into place. To retain as much usable lumber as I could, I chose to secure the log between these smaller boards rather than screw the log itself. However, mounting the actual log into place with screws isn't a bad idea either. To mount the 2x4 reference rails on top of the log, we first have to mount 1x2s level on both the front and the back of the log. These boards will hold up the reference rails, so they need to be firmly mounted in place with several screws. You want to make sure that you position these as high up on the log as possible to reduce your waste material. Another thing to note is that the length of these 1x2s is important, as they must be short enough to pass through the current length of your Alaskan chainsaw mill attachment. If these 1x2s mounted on the front and the back of the log are too long, your chainsaw mill will get stuck and will be unable to pass by them. The log that I'm currently milling is a walnut log, about 14 inches in diameter at its widest point. You can find logs just like this one listed for free on places like Facebook Marketplace. If you're able to obtain a log for free and have an Alaskan mill, your material costs are reduced significantly. Once the front and back 1x2s are leveled and mounted in place, I'll set the 2x4 reference rails on top and secure them in place by first clamping them together and drilling a pilot hole, and then driving in a screw at each corner. I would pay careful attention when setting up this first reference cut, as it determines the flatness of the rest of the boards, as the chainsaw mill will simply reference the top of the log instead of the rails on the second cut. Once our reference boards are set up, it's time to dial in our chainsaw mill for the first cut. The chainsaw mill has two long bars that run up and down with an engraved ruler on them. This will help you position the two sides so that the chainsaw doesn't cut at an improper angle. We need to position this first cut so that the chain rests just below the 1x2, as close as possible. Once we have this position measured, we can lock it in by tightening 4 bolts that secure the chainsaw in place. You'll want to double check the position of the mill by sliding it up against the log. If the chain rests just below the 1x2, you're ready to make your first cut. Now it's time to have some fun. Before you reach the end of the log, you want to shut off your chainsaw and use some shims to prop up the back of the log so that your chainsaw doesn't become jammed in the wood as you finish the cut. Our shims are now in place, so let's go ahead and finish out this cut. Now we have the crucial first reference cut finished, and we can remove the rails completely from the log now. It's a good idea to have a brush so that you can clean off the top after completing each cut. Next, we will need to readjust the Alaskan sawmill attachment so that it matches the width in which we want our boards to be. First, we will need to loosen the 4 bolts that secure the rails in place. Once they are loose, we will want to use the 2 engraved rulers to set the proper thickness. For this log, I set the mill to cut the boards out at 1 1/4 inch, which will leave me plenty of material to mill the boards to a 1 inch thickness once they are fully dry. For the remainder of the cuts, we will simply reference the top of the log and our mill will cut each of the boards out at 1 1/4 inch. Let's do this. I can tell you for certain that this process is as fun as it looks. We got our first board milled out, and the wood is absolutely beautiful. When using the mill, you want to keep the chainsaw in a steady position and hold firmly to get a nice clean cut, but I don't believe there's any special technique in the way you hold the mill or how you stand when operating the chainsaw. I would recommend that you get into a position that feels comfortable and then work from there. Don't forget that you'll want to shim the board before cutting all the way through your log. The shims become even more important as you work with thicker cuts and larger logs. As you finish out your cut, you want to pay careful attention as to not let the front of the mill drop down as it comes off the log, otherwise you won't get a flat cut. Let's get back to it. The milling process, including setup, only took an hour and a half, so for those worried about time, I would say that this process is actually much quicker than many would imagine. There you have it, the entire Alaskan sawmill process from start to finish. If you have any questions about this setup or how to make it work for you, please leave me a comment. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and until next time, I wish you all the best.